And welcome to the CarolinaCast podcast, Season 2, Episode 3. I'm Krish Verma alongside Kalen Patel. Go follow him at Kalen09 on Instagram. Kalen, how are you doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thursday night football's on, and it's just been a good week so far.
Yeah, as we come to you guys on a Thursday night, we'll have our next podcast on Sunday since there are no Panthers, but we will see them on Monday night. We'll get to that in just a moment. But before we do so, make sure you go ahead and hit the subscribe button. The CarolinaCast is on the road to 2,000 subscribers after we just reached 1,000 about a month ago. If you want to follow us on Instagram or TikTok, we are at CarolinaCast Sports, all undercase. And to follow us on Twitter/X, we are CarolinaCast_15. Let's go ahead and get straight into this. So, the Carolina Panthers lost their first game of the regular season to the Atlanta Falcons, 24-10 being the final score. As we can say, the rookie Bijan Robinson had a better half than Bryce Young did. Young only throwing for 146 yards, a passing touchdown, 2 interceptions. Kalen, I want to come to you on this. This was a very disappointing debut compared to the debut Cam Newton had with the Carolina Panthers about 12 years ago, where Newton had one of the greatest rookie debuts ever, but obviously cannot compare to that. He had Greg Olsen and Steve Smith, two future Hall of Famers on that team. Bryce Young does not have out of the football. So what are your Kalen, can you hear me?
Yeah, you lagged out for a second. What was the question?
Oh, I was just asking you, what are your thoughts of the game?
Oh, so honestly, Carolina played good football for the first 3 quarters of the football game. The game was tied at 10-10, a really good defensive effort. The issue was Bryce Young threw the ball 38 times. He had 20 completions. Adam Thielen, supposed to be the number 1 guy, only had 2 receptions for 12 yards. Bryce Young had a quarterback rating of under 50 with 2 interceptions. Jesse Bates was all over him in the Atlanta secondary. This second half was just brutal for Carolina, along 14 points, and that's what eventually led to their 24-10 loss.
Yes, the Panthers only had 1 touchdown out of Bryce Young, and that was to Hayden Hurst, who was pretty much his go-to target this entire game. 5 receptions for 41 yards and a touchdown. And Miles Sanders didn't really have a disappointing performance. He had 18 carries for 72 yards, but that fumble in the fourth quarter was brutal and really let Atlanta run away with this game. And you don't ever want to start the season losing to a division rival, especially in the NFC South where the Buccaneers and Saints won their games. So that puts Carolina in 4th place in the NFC South after 1 game into the season. And it's not going to get any easier because they have to face off against the Saints Monday Night Football at 7:15 p.m. Eastern time. That'll also be on the CarolinaCast. But, I mean, Kalen, now I got to ask you, after this performance, I know it's week 1, and we all know people are going to be blowing up at, oh, this guy sucks, this guy sucks. 1 game. It was the first game of the season. Like, people already bad-mouthing the Giants and the Bengals for their performances. So I got to ask you, how concerned are you about the Carolina Panthers right now?
Yeah, well, when I look at this Panthers team, I just have to look at the quarterback, Bryce Young. This was his first full NFL experience. Obviously, in the preseason, but he's not playing against starting caliber defenses. This was his first time playing against a starting caliber defense, and he had to play against Jesse Bates, who's arguably one of the best safeties in the NFL right now. It's just a really hard football team to play against in the Atlanta Falcons. I think they have a solid shot at winning their division, but Carolina, they've got to pick it up, and I'm not worried. It's 1 week of football, and there's just, you can't say that the Panthers are going to play like this consistently every single week when it's Bryce Young's first NFL experience. I think by week 6, week 7, Bryce Young is winning football games and having much better statistics than he put up today against Atlanta, or Sunday.
Yeah, so if you talk about the statistics you're saying, So how would that compare to Monday Night Football? Because it's not like the Panthers about to play any easier of a defense. I mean, Cam
Mm.
Jordan coming off the edge. The Saints also have Demario Davis. They've got some guy Tyrann Matthew, the Honey Badger. They got some guys on defense in New Orleans, and they've been one of the best defenses in the NFC South for years now, even during the Sean Payton and Drew Brees era. So I gotta ask you, what are your expectations for Monday Night Football? Bryce Young's home opener for the Carolina Panthers is under the bright lights. And it's not like he's been under them before. He's played at Alabama. He's played in big games, SEC championships, even national championships. So what are your expectations for Bryce Young in Carolina on Monday night?
Yeah, Monday Night Football, so they have the extra day of rest, 7:15 kickoff there. But here's the thing about New Orleans. They're a really good football team on paper, like offensively. Derek Carr, you've got Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, so many weapons. Taysom Hill, they're in the offense. On the defense, they're stacked as well. You mentioned Demario Davis and Cameron Jordan. Bryce Young's going to have a really difficult time. He needs to utilize his experience from against Atlanta to not throw 2 interceptions against New Orleans because they will pounce on that. New Orleans is coming off a great win against Tennessee, and they're not slowing down for the Carolina Panthers. I think the Panthers are going to have a really difficult time, and really, I think they're going to lose this football game.
And it's not going to be any easier trying to guard a guy like Cam Jordan coming off the edge because we just found out that one of the Carolina Panthers starting O-lineman, Brady Christian, who exited week 1, will be out for the remainder of the season with a biceps injury. I mean, this was already a weak offensive line, and it keeps going downhill after losing another starter. And then I guess some transactions, if you'd like to know, for the Carolina Panthers, just signed Tariq Cohen, who was a Pro Bowl running back for the Chicago Bears about a few years ago, tore his ACL and MCL in 2020, has been trying to make a comeback. He's officially back on the Carolina Panthers practice squad. He is not likely to suit up for Monday Night Football, but it's going to be very exciting to see him on the football field again.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he can bring to the table. I mean, he's had a lot of success in the past in Chicago, and how he's going to pair alongside guys like Miles Sanders, who have Super Bowl experience. So, that's the thing I really like about this Panthers offense. They've got guys with experience like Miles Sanders played in the Super Bowl, Adam Thielen's played in the NFC Championship game, and then they've also got the combination of young guys like Bryce Young, and now Tariq Cohen's going to be there. And I feel like it's just a lot of veteran talent that could really help motivate the rest of this offense.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy to think like these many players that the Panthers added in free agency have been in big games. Also, even Hayden Hurst made it to the AFC Championship game last year with the Cincinnati Bengals. Like, they've got guys that have had to step up in big moments, and that's another thing I really like about the Panthers offense they constructed in this free agency class, trying to give some new developing players in the draft and then get some guys with experience in free agency. And both of those guys will be new targets for Bryce Young. Obviously, he loved Hayden Hurst in week 1, but we'd like to see more from Adam Thielen. And hopefully we can get DJ Chark on the football field for Monday night. He was out week 1 with a hamstring injury. He is questionable to play on Monday night, but we hope to see him on the field.
Yeah, my fantasy team needs Adam Thielen to pick up the pace, and soon.
And hopefully he does, because that connection, Young to Thielen, we've been expecting it. And I know it's only week 1, so there's still plenty of time for it to grow. But I want to see it a good amount on Monday Night Football. So let's move on, and let's go ahead, take a look at this NFL week 1. I mean, football just being back is an absolute blessing. But we've seen some surprises from this week. First off, the Buccaneers traveling to Minnesota and beating the Vikings, Baker Mayfield's revenge story. I mean, the Bengals getting blown out by Deshaun Watson and the Browns 24-3 right before the game. Jamar Chase called the Browns a bunch of elves, and they lost to a bunch of elves. And then just looking around the league, I mean, Sam Howell getting the job done on the Cardinals, and obviously that was expected, Commanders being a better team than Arizona. Then you have Tua throwing 466 passing yards against the Chargers, and then one of the most historic Sunday night football games, I think, of all time, where Kalen's Dallas Cowboys absolutely destroyed the New York Giants 40-0. One of the worst football performances I've ever seen from a single team in one game. And then Monday was scripted. I'm sorry. Aaron Rodgers comes onto the football field, 4 plays in, tears his Achilles. Zach Wilson steps into the game, plays mediocre. And Josh Allen was the main headline of that game. He had 4 turnovers, 3 interceptions to Jordan Whitehead, and 1 crucial fumble that led to a Garrett Wilson touchdown. and then a punt return touchdown by an undrafted rookie in overtime to win it for the Jets. Caitlin, I know I spoke so much right there. So much happened in week one. Tell us what you thought about it.
Yeah, I thought there was a lot of good games going on consistently throughout the week. Why don't we just start from the top? Thursday Night Football, the Lions coming to Kansas City during their Super Bowl banner awards celebration that Kansas City's got going on. Spoils the party, Jared Goff and company. And it's another good game between Jared Goff and Patrick Mahomes. Only the second time we've seen this, and the second time it's been within 5 points of scoring. That matchup could become crucial later on in the next couple of years. Another thing I want to mention, Joe Burrow became the highest paid quarterback, $275 million, 219 guaranteed, and then he got benched. A lot of people are saying, the Bengals were out of the game. There was still 5 minutes left. The Bengals could have marched down and scored a touchdown. Joe Burrow got benched after getting the back. After that, I want to talk about who my biggest surprise team was. The Los Angeles Rams, playing without Cooper Kupp, going into Seattle and winning 30-13. Matthew Stafford had a great game, and he had a lot of receivers that maybe you didn't know about. Tutu Atwell had a good game, and it was just a really good offensive showing for the Rams. Now, going on to the defensive side of the ball, how about them Dallas Cowboys? Daniel Jones being paid $40 million a year, lost by 40 points to the Dallas Cowboys. Easily one of the worst showings of Daniel Jones' entire career. Dallas had 7 sacks, 14 defensive points, and their defense was the second best overall player in fantasy football, only behind Tyreek Hill. Talking about Tyreek Hill's team, the Miami Dolphins, they were electric on offense. They had the fastest offense in the NFL, and they're going to give the Patriots a brutal nightmare on Sunday Night Football next week. So we might get 2 Sunday Night Football blowouts in a row. What are the odds, Krish? And then, lastly, Monday Night Football, Aaron Rodgers tears his Achilles. Jets fans really, really down in the mud right now. But Zach Wilson comes and plays mediocre. Josh Allen had more passes to the New York Jets than Aaron Rodgers did in that game. Really, really crazy there. But people are sleeping on the Bills, Bengals, and Chiefs. They think they were the 3 best teams in the AFC last year, and they both come off with losses. I think they're all going to bounce back in week 2. I think they're all going to get wins. What do you think about those 3 teams, Krish?
I certainly agree. I mean, it's just week 1. We know the Bengals last year started the season 0-2. Kansas City had struggles in the past, and I mean, Buffalo has just come up, and we saw it that Josh Allen did throw a lot of interceptions last year. That's part of his game. He does make some risky decisions, but we also saw at the start of the Bills game, Josh Allen looked perfect. And if you looked at his stat line, at least in the first half, Josh Allen only had like a few incompletions. Josh Allen went 29 for 41, 236. That's good with 1 touchdown. And then at one point only had a few incompletions, but those interceptions are lethal to him. Very lethal. But I mean, Stephon Diggs, when you have a guy like Stephon Diggs getting 100 receiving yards for 10 receptions and a touchdown, you would think you'd win a football game. It's just, I mean, you cannot blame this game on the Bills defense at all. And then for the Bengals, that was just a poor showing from all sides of the football field. Offense was awful. Defense was awful. It was a complete problem. Like the Bengals aren't screwed, but they cannot have that performance ever again. And then for Kansas City, I mean, are we really going to blame this game on Patrick Mahomes? I mean, Kadarius Toney had 4 crucial drops. Patrick Mahomes, and remember the Super Bowl they lost to the Buccaneers, right? And Mahomes had multiple plays like he's rolling out, throwing off balance to an open Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He dropped the ball. That's how pretty much this game went. He had Sky Moore on a few plays dropping the ball. No one was holding on to the football for Patrick Mahomes, and he was doing everything in his power, and somehow they only lost that game by 1 point. And I am impressed they only lost that game by 1 point. And you're really going to tell me Patrick Mahomes had a pick 6 against, and give credit to Brian Branch. I mean, he's a rookie out of Alabama making big plays in his first NFL game. Good for him. But that cannot be blamed on Mahomes. I feel like that's an INT that should go against Kadarius Toney. And for these 3 teams, you're not going to win every football game. None of those teams were set to go 17-0 anyway. And I don't think anyone in the NFL is set to go 17-0 this year. So with that all being said, I don't really worry. I think we need to wait till a couple weeks into this season before I can really critique what's going on, kind of understand it. I think my biggest concern right now might be the Bengals just because of that poor performance they had on the road. But I still believe in Joe Burrow and the receivers he has like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. So with that all being said, I think we can go ahead and move on a little bit into college football because the rankings are getting very interesting in college football, but we also had some very interesting games in the Carolinas as well. If you did not know, last week, North Carolina hosted Appalachian State, and folks, we nearly got an upset. I mean, I was amazed that North Carolina won this football game. Double overtime. They prevailed to the Mountaineers 40-34 in a very, very, very close game. And that just proves to show my point that I didn't think that, Drake May, North Carolina was really that good. I mean, they're the best team in the Carolinas, but they're not like, when you look at the entire country, they are not the best. And then if you look at the rankings right now in college football, I mean, dude, this is insane. I'm a Florida State football fan as well as East Carolina. And the Noles are now third in the country. And after Texas upset Alabama, those two teams pretty much swap places with the Crimson Tide moving down to 10 and Texas moving up to 4. So if the college football playoff would start today, it'd be Georgia versus Texas and Michigan versus Florida State. Kaylin, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people had high expectations for this Florida State team going into the season, and now they've just proved themselves with that win against LSU. Had an easier game in week 2, and now they find themselves as the third best team in the country, projected to be in the college football playoff. I know this is probably touching you more as a Florida State fan. And another thing I want to talk about is the the Texas team played so well against Alabama, and Nick Saban, he has been losing a lot of these tough-ranked games in these last couple of years, and I feel like both Nick Saban and Bill Belichick, they are officially both out of their prime. I mean, this is kind of a hot take from me. Chris, what are your opinions on that take?
Well, I could definitely see why you say they're out of their prime. They have not put up winning stats over the last couple of years. And it's really hard to compare Bill Belichick to Nick Saban just because, there's recruiting. So Nick Saban could get a college football Tom Brady every couple of seasons. And he's had it in the past. I mean, it was Jalen Hurts. It was Tua Tagovailoa, Mac Jones, Bryce Young. But then you go Bill Belichick, he's only had to go from Tom Brady to Mac Jones over his 20-year tenure with the New England Patriots. And he's still trying. And the NFL is completely different than college football, right? NIL deals. You can bring guys in on its recruiting and all that. The NFL, you're getting paid the big bucks, and you're going to get paid on contracts to play for multiple years. College is only for a few years. So for Bill Belichick's spot, I still think he's going to be coaching for a while from this. I don't know how you can fire Bill Belichick just because he does put up good defense, right? And defense does win you championships. But that Patriots offense needs improvement. I really am disappointed that they were not able to acquire DeAndre Hopkins in free agency, but they did bring in Zeke, which I think is, it's a mediocre signing when you already have Ramondre Stevenson, but I guess you want to pound the rock a little bit. You don't have all the trust in Mac Jones, who's going to get him a good wide receiver. I guess Juju Smith-Schuster is a little good. And then you look at Alabama football. After Bryce Young declared for the NFL draft, the Crimson Tide don't really have a quarterback. I mean, Jalen Milroe was in talks of not being the starting quarterback for the Crimson Tide during spring training and during this college football offseason. There were talks about Alabama having QB battles. Jalen Milroe, at the end of the day, came out with the starting job. And the Crimson Tide, they did not look good on Saturday night, and Texas just looked like the better team.
Yeah, I completely agree. But college football is interesting because you could have the biggest upset ever. Like, for example, like Appalachian State in that upset against, I believe it was Michigan, was one of the biggest upsets in college football history. And the state of North Carolina as itself was just really impressed by that. So, like, college football, anything can really happen. And if you look at the NFL, I mean, almost every single the biggest upset in the NFL right now, I'd say like the Arizona Cardinals beating Kansas City Chiefs. That is far more likely than a bottom of SC State beating Alabama, something like that. Like that's the difference between college football and the NFL. And I just want to ask you this question, Chris. I've got a lot of different answers when I've asked this question before. I think the answer is pretty obvious, but do you think the best team in college football could beat the worst team in the NFL?
No, absolutely not. I completely disagree. And I think one of the closest teams to at least put up a battle against the bottom, like let's say the Cardinals and maybe last year's Georgia team would have a chance. Or you could say the 2019 LSU team that had Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, great defense, because a lot of those guys are in the NFL. The only way you can compare it is guys that had great seasons at that college and ended up in the NFL the next year. And there are only a few teams that were like that, like last year's Georgia team, 2019 LSU. Those are like some of the only teams I can really think of. But no, I really don't think so, especially not this year. But like even in future, like no, it would. Those guys make it to the NBA. That's the highest point you can get at that sport, in the sport of American football. And a lot of these guys in college don't make it. A lot of these guys don't make it from high school to college, and a lot of these guys don't make it from college to the NFL. So no, I don't think so.
Yeah, and then just a follow-up question. I think this is a little bit more difficult to answer. Do you think if you took the top 4 teams in college football right now, so Texas, Florida State, Georgia, and Michigan, take those 4 teams, combine all of their players to make like this super college football team, do you think they're capable of beating a middle-of-the-pack team like the New England Patriots, for example?
No, I don't think so again either. These guys, listen, they're playing with college football rules, and it's completely different to the NFL. I mean, this might be an example that only some people get, but if you're watching the final moments of the Eagles versus Patriots game, we had I believe it was a rookie wide receiver on 4th down who made a catch for a first down on Mac Jones to keep the drive alive with about 30 seconds remaining. They went to review, and he only had 1 foot in bounds. Like, these guys have to adjust to the brand new rules of the NFL as well. And just the policies and everything you have to go through to be in the NFL, because it is you're on a complete different audience than you are in college.
Yeah, I agree.
The expectation is just completely different. And speaking of our expectations, we're going to round up the podcast talking about our expectations for college football week 3, because I'm expecting some pretty solid matchups. I think Florida State, Boston College will be pretty fun to watch. But on the Carolina side, South Carolina, Georgia, which will be the CarolinaCast college football game of the week. The number 1 team hosting Spencer Rattler and the Gamecocks. East Carolina heads on the road to play Appalachian State. The Mountaineers are 9-point favorites in that one. It's the Pirates starting the year 0-2. Mason Garcia does not look good at all for ECU. And then just a solid week of college football in general. Well, I think that one of the games people are most excited about is to watch Colorado State versus Colorado, just to watch Coach Prime on prime time. I'm excited. I love watching Deion Sanders' team. Man, dude, it is awesome watching Colorado.
Yeah, they've got a Heisman contender. For some reason I'm blanking on his name, but he plays on both sides of the football. Do you remember his name, Chris?
Travis Hunter.
Yeah, Travis Hunter. He plays offense, then he gets 2 sips of water, then he's back on the field for defense. It's just amazing what he does. I think he's capable of winning the Heisman if these Heisman voters really recognize the talent that it takes to play on both sides of the football.
And I wouldn't just say Travis Hunter, but I'd also say Deion's son, Shedeur Sanders, who's playing starting quarterback for the Buffaloes. I mean, he put up a school record in his first game at Colorado. Very next game did not disappoint against Nebraska. So, I mean, Shedeur Sanders at quarterback looks great. Travis Hunter playing on both sides of the football looks great. And then you're getting coached by Deion Sanders. Like, it's Deion Sanders. It's prime time, baby. Like, you cannot get it any better. I love what he's doing with Colorado, and I'm really excited to see how far the program goes with them. And with that, all things, everyone add on to something? Well,
what I want to add on is one of my other hot takes I made earlier in the college football season, I think right after week 1. It's very unrealistic. That's why I would say a hot take. But my hot take was Colorado makes the college football playoff this year, or definitely next year when there's a 12-team college football.
Oh, I would definitely say for next year, just because, opens up to 12. But even for this year, I think there is a solid possibility if teams like Texas could get in. Here's my only issue is you look at the rankings and Colorado's at 18. They're going to keep climbing if they win football games. I'm not worried about that. But it's just the quality of teams that are in the top 6. I don't think Ohio State is that real, so I'm going to cut off Ohio State. I don't think they make the college football playoff this year. But you still have Caleb Williams and USC that are ranked 5th in the nation. They aren't even in the college football playoff currently. And if there's one of the 4 teams that I think will fall out, it has to be Texas. But then I think USC takes that spot. So that means either Florida State, Michigan, or Georgia are going to fall out. And I know this might sound a little biased. I don't think Florida State is falling out. So, and I don't think Georgia's falling out. So I think it wouldn't be wrong for me to say that if there's one team that could fill in a spot for Colorado, this would sound so weird, but I think it's Michigan falling out of the rankings and putting Colorado in. So what we could, if Colorado makes the playoffs, it could be Georgia, Florida State, either Texas or USC, and Colorado. Those are my predictions because I feel like there are some good teams. Like Washington is really good. Michael Penix Jr. Notre Dame with Sam Hartman is very underrated. I mean, there are some good teams. But if you're talking about the college football playoffs, man, that's a completely different level.
Yeah, and what I really think, when I look at the college football playoff, the only lock for me, is the Georgia Bulldogs. I think Florida State could easily this could just be their recent run against LSU. I don't want to say I think Florida State's a good football team. I think they're going to make the college football playoff, but I think that they have the same probability of a team like Michigan missing out for Colorado.
Yes, certainly. I just feel like it would be a Michigan thing to lose their way out.
Michigan thing, yeah, I like that.
Like just for being a Michigan. But other than that, like there's not. It's tough because there's only 4 spots, and like there are so many good quality teams that it would really be tough. But I think Colorado is going to give a fight. So with that all being said, I think it's time to go ahead and wrap up this podcast here on CarolinaCast Season 2, Episode 3. Thank you all for listening in. As this Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, the CarolinaCast go live for College Game Day. This is our Week 3 edition. We get ready. Wake up with us for college football on a Saturday morning. And then later on at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, South Carolina, the Gamecocks with Spencer Rattler head on the road to play at the house of the Bulldogs in Athens, Georgia. The number 1 team in the country hosts South Carolina, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time this Saturday on the CarolinaCast. And then on Monday night, Bryce Young plays for his very first time at Bank of America Stadium in the regular season as he hosts the division rival, the New Orleans Saints. Monday Night Football, 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time. That game is also live on the CarolinaCast. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. The CarolinaCast on the road to 2,000 subscribers. Once again, Instagram and TikTok is at CarolinaCast Sports, all undercase. And for Twitter/X, we are CarolinaCast_15. And also, this podcast you can listen to on YouTube and on Spotify. You can just look up CarolinaCast Podcast, and you will find us right there. So thank you all for Krish Verma, Kalen Patel, and the rest of our crew. We will see you all on our next podcast. We will see you all for College Game Day, college football on Saturday evening, and for Monday Night Football. Thank you all for tuning in the CarolinaCast podcast. We will see you all next time.